Hello and welcome to another pencil sketch video demonstration. Today I am sketching out a male portrait in pencil, this time in profile, which gives it its own challenges as the profile line becomes very important. So this is how I went about it. I start with an initial blocking in of the head. I lightly make a few marks where I think things will go and look for big shapes and angles and filter out the details. You might be able to just make out the shape of the head and the hair at this point. I include the eye socket from the brow line to the cheekbones as one of the major landmarks I use to gauge where things sit and the proportions to some extent, the other one being the nose. This is the initial blocking in stage. Then I move on to the eye. It's one of, if not the main feature of the portrait, as we tend to gravitate towards the eyes in any portrait. But because I haven't drawn many profiles, this eye does give me some challenges, and I would have liked to have been able to do it better, but in the end I am happy with it. I think it's a good reason to draw the facial features at many angles for practice and just to build a bit of experience and confidence. When laying in the features in this stage, I include any shapes such as the shadow shapes that will help me build up the forms and understand more of what I'm drawing as well. You can see how I'm using the shadow below the eye and from the outside of the nostril to the lip area. Onto laying in the mouth, and I did go over this a few times and make some changes. The way the upper lip sits on top of the lower lip is really important in profile, as it makes part of the profile line from the top of the head to right under the chin, and this line can be very different depending on the person. I ended up moving that line around quite a bit until I was happy with the angle the lips and the chin were sitting on, although it did take me a few goes until I was happy with that top lip. I mess around with the eye again, and the only reason is because I haven't drawn many eyes from the side. I will have to study that a little bit more in my spare time. I start a bit of basic shading, the cheekbones and the lower jaw part. I have to say I really like shading around the mouth. For some reason I find shading the jowls quite fun. It's a bit weird, I guess. The side of the head is very important, and this piece between the temple and the hairline is also a major puzzle piece for me when eyeballing the distance and then working out where the ear and the back of the head will sit. I reinforce the line of the underside of the chin and its connection to the neck, and then immediately go to the back of the head. I think that's because I'm still looking at the head as a whole and working from one side to the other. But it's okay because I go to fill in the hair, which is the next biggest task in portraits for me. Then for most of the rest of the drawing, I just go back to reinforce and reconfirm parts that I like and fix the parts that I don't. It's time to start putting in some more detail, and I'm back to working on the eye. I think I made it worse before I fixed it somewhat in the end, and I wish I didn't make such a dark, thick line. It was scary. I thought I'd ruined it. So to take the edge off, I start working on the eyebrow and the lips, which was the other disaster area. It did all come together in the end, so you can see that I erased parts, and I really start to look at it and see like what is wrong with this and what can I do to fix it. And it's just a matter of taking a step back and really concentrating and really looking and seeing what it is that is different from the reference to the picture that you're making, even if you have to make some small changes. Then I start doing I need to put some lead down on the paper, so I start to do a little bit of shading all over and fill in the ear. The ear used to be really hard for me, but once you understand the folds a little bit more and the variations on different people, it's a little bit easier to block in and fill in the details. So I thought I'd come up with this idea that I'd make it a little bit more interesting by making like a little bit of like glitch shapes behind and through him. I didn't like the part where I did it through him, so I ended up fixing that later on. But it was interesting. It was a consideration of the background, which is something that I haven't really been doing, and it's something that I do want to work on. So I'm glad, even though this is quite simple, I'm glad that I did it because it's expanding my progress outside of just the drawing of the portrait. Now, working on the hair a little bit more, I wanted to put a little bit of detail in between the light and the dark area. So you can see that that part does have a little bit more detail, and the top of the head. So, and then just filling in that area. The hairstyle is a bit different from the reference. I do smooth it out with a tissue there, actually all over, because I needed to create a tone on the page that I can erase out parts out of it to create the highlights, which I do there. And that little speck, get rid of it, there we go. That annoyed me so much. But yeah, anyway, so we're getting close to the end, and in the hair, the pulling out the highlights really didn't work, so I didn't put too much into that. I thought it was fine. It wasn't the focus of the sketch, so that's fine. Now it's time to start making things a little bit darker. So I do move to a softer pencil. So this I think is a 6B. I'm not quite sure. Generally I use 2H, a B, a 2B or a 4B, and then a heavier 6B. So just making the hair on the underside darker than the top side and filling in that area. This is basically the rendering and tidying up stage. So this is close to the finished portrait. It's just making more of the finer adjustments here and there. All the hard work has been done. This is just shading and rendering out, with a few minor corrections here and there. So I didn't want to put too much detail in the clothing that he was wearing, so it's just basically a pencil line, which is fine. And then I start to try and fix the eye, and I did make it better than it was with that dark line. Like I said before, it is something that I do need to practice on, doing the eyes at this angle. The lips is a little bit poutish, got a bit of duck lips. So again, that's probably something that I'll need to work on, but that's fine because it's all progress. And if you're drawing, not everything is going to be turning out perfect because you have to learn. So failure is part of the success. And sometimes it's just trial and error to figure out what clicks in your head to make it all fit together and make you understand what you're doing a little bit better. You can see that I erased a part of the eye there just to redo it because I just wasn't happy with that at all. And that was something in the past that I had trouble in erasing whole areas because it wasn't working out. I would just think, oh, it's just ruined. And I would lose interest in doing the sketch at all. So covering a bit more of the paper now, and I do start to work in those elements, those background elements, and fix them up, make them a little bit darker. If you hear anything in the background, it's just my dog playing with her toy. I want them to be different values and tones, and looking at it, I can see that the darker ones are at the top and lighter ones working down. So it's almost like a gradation of those rectangles in the background. And we are nearly done, and somehow through all of that, I think we've pulled off a portrait in profile that isn't too bad. So I would say to anyone else trying to learn is to just keep at it, really just keep at it. That's all you have to do, is just not to give up when it gets hard. And if you have to take a break, but just keep going at it. Even just push those ugly drawings out of the way, because you will eventually get to the better ones. And there we go. It is still a really rough sketch. It is just a sketch. It is not a finished drawing because I don't have the patience for that yet, but hopefully in the future we'll work on that. Thanks for staying with me if you did, and I shall upload another one very soon. Maybe not with a voiceover, maybe I'll just... Well, anyway, see you next time.